But I think deep down, like, if you haven't tried this stuff, I think you really want to. Like, I think there's just a lot of fear that lies in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I definitely would say for me too. Like okay, so I got with Derek when I was 18, and so I hadn't gotten to that point where like I had even ever had a chance to even think about buying a dildo, and then, or a vibrator, and then I was with him, and I thought that it was like wrong, like, and so like to be honest, like I didn't masturbate like at all, like for the entirety like of the most of our relationship, really. And then that was something that we just kind of reintroduced, like with travel, because he travels for work. And so it was a rediscovery moment for me. But
which
yeah,
is another like thing that we had to talk about was like the amount of people that do like utilize like masturbation. So I think that it's such a taboo subject. And I think in the last few years, like it's starting to become more like open or whatever, but it's still just like, oh, I don't do that. Or like, we can't talk about that, or that's wrong. Like, you can't do that. And I think that that is like a myth that needs to just be like debunked like immediately.
it's okay for men, and they talk about it and joke about it all the time. But for women, it's like not allowed, or it's gross.
Right. And I mean, honestly, like for men to have sex, for them to get off is so much simpler. You know what I mean? And for women, it's like there's so much that goes into it. Like it's such a process. And honestly, like there are like two different ways that we can, and most women can't get off from sexual penetration, And
Which
so
is crazy to me because that's the majority for me.
I can easily now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in past relationships, I could not. So I think that, again, it stems from just like us having a really good, solid, healthy relationship. But I think for like a woman, like a guy is just going to do what he knows how to do, and not every woman is the same. So unless you can experiment like with your body and figure out what it is that like feels good for you, that you like, they're just going to do whatever they do, and it's going to be not good. You know what I mean? Which has been like my experience with any like hookups that I've had. They were all bad. There's never been like a good one, because they don't know. Like we are new to each other's bodies. And so I think like it's so important for women to be able to like experiment with themselves and like even with their partners, like it's not wrong.
I think co-masturbation is really fucking hot.
Absolutely.
Like there's something about it. So like watching my husband pull out and like finish the job himself. Right. I didn't say it for a long time, but I'm like, that is so hot. And then we started doing it together, and it's like one of our favorite things.
So, I realized then at that point in time too, is that like, we always make sure that like I'm taken care of first because it's like a more complex process, And so it's just like, he'll do that. And then immediately I'm just like, okay, like I think I'm turned on again because that's like really hard when you do that. You know what I mean? And then we're just like, okay, like let's do it again. And people just need to be okay with like talking about it and realizing that, sex can be more than just like missionary and be done. You know what I mean? Like there's so much like unexplored, and it's so important for you guys to both like explore your own bodies. But I know like a huge thing about like masturbation is probably, people discover it at generally young ages, and at that point in time you're just like, what do you do with this information, And at least for me, that's kind of like what it was like. And I'm just like, this is like this wrong thing, and it's not something you're going to talk to your friends about. Like I don't even remember the first time I even like talked about it, period, like as a teenager or an adult. Like I have no idea, because it was just like, I can't believe that that's something that I do and it's bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like you felt like you're the only one. Like right. I felt like as a young teenager, like I did it nearly every night, like just to fall asleep. And then I'm like, I'm addicted to this. Like, and so
Yeah,
like I
same.
had this like, because you don't know what's normal. But it's like it's
Right.
no different than having sex every night, like when you have a partner.
Except you're
So
young, and so you feel like it's really wrong.
masturbation to me is a great thing. It took me a long time to be in that headspace. I'm like, why would you masturbate if you have a partner? Like, on it, like would prefer to have sex with my partner more than I would to masturbate.
Right.
But I am so simple when it comes to masturbating because vibrators almost like it makes me so sensitive that it almost hurts. And
Yeah,
it
I'm
feels
not.
really good and it's really quick, but then it's just like almost like too much. So
Hmm.
like for the people who use vibrators, I guess solely, I can't imagine what it would feel from going to that and being used to that to then like having a partner and like having, sex with a person. Like
You don't
how
want to get
different it.
dependent on it either.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people, and it's no different than with men and like porn and masturbating. Like they get so used to something that it almost numbs them out to have sex with their partner. But, um, you know, so I guess going back to your point about your hookups, um, brought me back to another surprising result as far as what we found in this survey. And that was the number of people who prefer sex with a partner. So whether that's a relationship or somebody you have sex with all the time or you're married, whatever you consider your partner versus casual sex, which for me, I didn't have that chance to participate in casual sex, as a young adult, really. I mean, I did as a young teenager, but I wouldn't even consider that anything because that was more like I was trying to figure it out.
Right. You don't even know at that point.
But as far as like casual sex, like it's so common now, people just hook up or they're out and about. And like I hear it so much. Like I work with a lot of young people. I have younger siblings. And so like that hookup culture is very prevalent. And so for me, I can't really relate. But to see those results, that was very surprising to me, is that people would prefer sex with an actual partner that they're in a relationship with versus casual sex. And a lot of the like results that came with that is because you never know what to expect with somebody random. Like it could be as simple as vanilla missionary sex, or it could be like as complex as, and I'm going to use a podcast that I listened to. She was saying like what was one of her like weirdest sexual experiences. And she said the guy literally grabbed my chin and pulled it down and said, I'm going to spit in your mouth, and spit in her mouth. And she was like, she was like, in my brain, I was like, this is so fucking gross. But then she was like, after he did it, I thought it was so hot. And so I've
Really?
never done that. It sounds gross to me.
That sounds
And if
gross.
you do
Yeah.
that, I hope it's a great time. But for me, it sounds nasty. Maybe one day I'll progress to that. But
I've
yeah,
never heard of that.
so for it to be on the spectrum of so normal to like kind of out there, or like licking people's fingers or kissing people's feet and like stuff like that, it's like that comes with like a lot of time with a person and being comfortable. And some people just throw it out there when they're having casual sex. So that was kind of surprising to me. So you who have participated in casual sex, what is your weirdest experience?
Oh my gosh. Let me just with
And this
I
is
don't
just
want to
me
sound
asking out of curiosity.
yeah, okay. And listen, I'm not ashamed or anything. And I'm like at risk of sounding like a whore. I am not. But, I've had my fair share because I, lost my virginity to my high school boyfriend. After like a year and a half or two, we broke up. And then when I actually, before I got married, like that was a casual hookup that developed into a relationship that developed into a marriage. And then, you know, we got divorced and I was 21. And so I'm like, you know, what am I going to do now? Like, I've never been single as an adult. And honestly, I was just like, let's test the waters. You know what I mean? And at this point, I'm just like, well, I've already had sex with 2 people. Like, I have no idea what it is that, you know, I like. And so, yeah, um, a lot of casual hookups for me. And I am trying to think of like the weirdest experience ever. The problem is that most of them, you know, were just one time. So like, I have to actually, you know, like think of like who they were. I am just like completely drawing a blank. None of them were really good. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't think anything was ever like too weird, but like, I don't know. It's like none of them believed in any kind of foreplay or I don't
Just like
think
get to
I,
it.
yeah. And honestly, most of the time I was pretty drunk.
Do you feel like in casual sex it was mostly to appease the male?
Yeah, and that's just generally how I am anyway. So it's just like, you know, I do all these things and get nothing in return. And I would say that like 1% of the time I got something out of it. And
That
so
sucks.
it it was never like a good experience. Trying to think. So a couple of those like casual hookups were more than once, but not like a ton of times. And honestly,
Mm-hmm.
like the best casual hookup was probably with someone that was my friend that we decided to hook up because we just know
You
each
almost
other.
had a little bit of a connection. Like not a sexual chemistry maybe, but a connection as far as like you knew each other enough to at least be somewhat kind of open.
Yeah, and oh, I'm dropping an AirPod. Um, yeah, this person, he was my best friend. And so, you know, we always drink together and whatever. And I would talk to him about everything going on in my life. And like we hooked up twice. And so, like, I would say that those were better. But it's because, you know, we had an actual relationship with each other. And so, you know, I was good with that. But the other ones, like, I knew most of them, but they just, I don't know. It was just really weird. Like, and it's so uncomfortable. Like, and it might just be me because I'm just an awkward person, period. But like, unless I was drunk, like, I'm always really awkward. I'm always really uncomfortable. Like, it just like was never a really good time for me. And it was mostly weird if you like stayed at their house. Um, in my recent venture of hookups before I met Gary, okay, that just reminded me
Hold
of
on,
one.
pause 1 second, okay? I'm gonna run them out.
So whenever you asked me that question, I was thinking, like trying to think back from like, you know, being like 21, 22. And I'm like, I've almost like blocked those out of my brain. So I'm like, whenever you initially asked that question, I was thinking back to being like 21, 22, and like what those experiences were like. And I'm like, I think for my own well being, I've tried to block them out as much as possible. So I can think of, you know, separating from my kid's dad and like that time period. And so, like, the first guy that I hooked up with after our split, really nice. Like, I thought so anyway. And I'm just, oh my God. And immediately at the end of this, I'm just like, wow, it was so stupid. Like, he was actually kind of a dick. But I must have just had like a thing for those kinds of guys because that's just always like where I end up. Anyway, the first time I met him, which I met him on Tinder, okay? So stupid. And he was like a cop part-time and I was like, you know, that's cool, whatever. And the first time I actually met him, like I was at a bar with my aunt and my cousin, and he like drove 45 minutes there because he wanted to come have drinks with me. And I kept like saying no. My aunt was like, no, like you should. And whatever. He was really nice, like buying all my drinks. Like we went to another bar, um, in which I like went with him, and then he like dropped me off and was like so trash. Like I don't even know how he got home, and it was really shitty of me. So I was just like, okay, bye. Like, but he worked like a night shift as like at a 911 call center too part of the time. And so like at that point I had like lived in this townhouse in Muncie, and he would like come over like on his breaks of lunch or whatever, which were, you know, late. And, you know, my kids were sleeping and stuff. So I was like, whatever. I don't, it, I kept like saying like, you know, I'm not ready to just like hook up or whatever. And then at some point I was just like, okay, whatever. And it just wasn't like kid break. Okay. So this guy, yeah, he would like come over like on his lunch break or whatever. And like we started hooking up, and it wasn't like exceptional or anything, but it was just like, okay, like it's filling this void, I guess. You know what I mean? So like he was still pretty like nice. I'm quoting that. Because he really like wasn't even that nice at all. And then the last time that we hooked up, like he came over, like called me. He was like really drunk, and he was leaving this party at his friend's house that I remember him telling me about, how his friend has this huge party every summer and blah blah. How he was so excited to go to it, and kept talking about it in like a sense of like, oh yeah, like it's gonna be really cool, but like would it invite me? And like I don't know. Then he went to the party and then called me after. And I was like, whatever. So he like came over, and he was so drunk, and he like this is so embarrassing. We like had sex, and it was really bad, and he like got like shit stains in my bed. I'm so serious.
Dude!
I'm like, I don't know if just like he wasn't really trash and like couldn't wipe his ass or whatever it was that he was doing.
That's
Like
disgusting.
I like saw it, and I was like, I'm throwing these sheets away. Like I have to throw the sheets away. And like I can't even just like tell you like how I was feeling like in that moment. And you know, we never talked again. Never again. I've never talked to him one more time after that.
That is so
He
nasty.
he like called someone to pick him up because I was just like, oh, like you're not staying, because like obviously I didn't know that this had happened yet. And he's like, no, like I have to work tomorrow, blah blah blah. Like I have to get home and all this stuff because like whatever. So he left because my kids weren't home, and like he wouldn't stay. And then he had like one of his cop friends pick him up and like take him home. And I'm like cleaning the room, and I'm just like, I'm like stretching out the sheet, like looking at it, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, how fucking gross, you know? And I'm just like,
That
I don't
is
even have words.
disgusting.
It was disgusting.
Was his name Mark?
No, not
Skid
that
Mark.
guy. Skid
No,
Mark.
Skid Mark.
Oh my god.
You really said with somebody named Mark. You said no, not that guy.
I never slept with a guy named Mark. I talked to him for a long time though. Like a guy. But he didn't shit in my bed. So listen, I
So nasty.
I like blocked that memory out because it's so disgusting. And anyway, we never talked again. And so there were only 2 more hookups after that one, like 2 different people, I mean, and before I met Gary. And like obviously nothing like that happened. They got better each time, like the people did, not necessarily the sex, but like the human themselves. And so which brings me to a completely different point. This episode has went into so many directions, but I don't think anyone's going to be bored listening to it. So I don't even give a fuck. So like I met that guy on Tinder, right? The next guy I met on Facebook dating, which is a thing. He was an actual dick, but like how do I even describe this? It's like he would like do nice things for me and whatever, but like fuck around with you in a way that I don't know, like making fun of you, like being an asshole, but like too much. You know what I mean?
Oh, I dated a guy in high school like that.
Yeah, and it just was like, the only thing that was good for him, like that was like the only casual sex that was like good, I guess, but like his
Yeah.
personality was not good. And then the next guy that I met was like the most established, and I met him on Bumble. So I'm just like, in the tiers of dating apps, it's like Tinder's at the bottom, Bumble's at the top, and Facebook's like right in the middle because you don't know what you're gonna get. But I'm like, the guy that I met on Bumble lived in Fishers and was just like in the process of buying this like nice house and was like worked at some like software company and was like had his shit together. He was really nice, and we just like we like went out and then we like hooked up and we just like didn't have like that connection. But it was a very like, you're really great. Like it's just not, we don't have that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I don't know. That was the last one. And then I was just like, that's the point where I was just like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to go on dates anymore. And, I can't ever get over the fact that someone like pretty much shit on my bed. So, um, I was,
You should
I was,
you should have went for one more time and went to his house and like pulled an Amber Heard on him.
I literally, oh my God. Well, that's the other thing. Is like he wouldn't invite me to his house. Like he would only come to my house, and I'm just
Probably
like, I
because
don't
he
know.
had shit everywhere.
And
Literal shit.
I'm like, how embarrassing, you know what I mean? And so, at that point, I was just like done with hookups, and I'm so thankful that I met Gary like right after that. Anyway, so after the last guy, it was like a few weeks when I started like texting Gary and we started talking and whatever. And I like it brings me back to like how the casual hookups are just like terrible sex generally. Like 95% of the time they're really bad. And Gary and I hadn't even met until a couple months of like talking, And so like the first time that we had sex was so good. And I'm like, so I think it really is just like the talking and like the
Having some
connection.
kind of connection. Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm like, even if it wasn't like physical, because I'm like, we kissed months later, and we didn't do any kind of like sex stuff like over the phone before we met. Like, we would like talk about stuff and whatever, but like I didn't, like, he didn't see me naked like completely until then because I wanted to wait, and like that it was just like really good sex. And then after that, like when I moved back and then we had this long distance thing, then it was just like Jesus fucking Christ. There's like
Sounds like you live on a construction site.
I don't even know what it is.
Baby.
So I know you mentioned Derek's doing like traveling and stuff, but like for me, obviously like I came to Hawaii and then I went back home for 2 months before I moved here. And obviously like our relationship had like progressed tremendously because I came here. And so we only had like virtual sex, you know what I mean? And it was never something I'd done before. Like I wasn't comfortable with it. Like I've never sent a completely naked picture in my life until that point. And I mean, and he hadn't either. And so it was just something like that was really weird for both of us. Like we were both really like it was something we had to like experience together, which was nice because I think it always makes it a little more uncomfortable when someone else is more seasoned in something than you. But yeah, so like our relationship was basically like masturbation on FaceTime, you know what I mean? And like he like sent me a box of like toys and candles and stuff, and like we would like do stuff like that and like schedule out times. But I think that like if you are with someone and you guys have to be apart, like I think it would be a fun experience to try. And I know like you said you guys have kind of dabbled in that, right?
Yeah, so we did one time when I was drunk, and that was a long time ago when Grady was first born. So 10, 11 years ago. And then that was only because we were drunk and we never talked about it or did it again. And then so about this time, we had just started using toys, like after we moved here, and then started to become like more comfortable, like masturbating in front of each other. And then it kind of opened that door into like, this will be fun. Like, we've already seen each other do that. And then, like, you're going to be away. And so we can just take it one step further. And honestly, all I want to see is you doing stuff on yourself. You don't got to show all your goods, but it's no different than them seeing you in person.
Right.
So to me, it is what it is. And some people have a hard time with it, especially older generations, just trusting the internet and whatnot. And there is such thing as revenge porn. But if I'm gonna full-heartedly trust my husband, like I'm gonna trust him, like I'm gonna trust that my images aren't being used anywhere else, that he's not
Hmm.
selling me online or whatever, like whatever people are afraid of, like you have to just trust your partner. And so I feel like that's something that holds a lot of people back from even sending a photo, you know, they can get into
Right.
the wrong hands, and that's what people are afraid of. But honestly, whatever, I wouldn't put anything out there that I'm not proud of.
And at this point, it's just like the way that the world is. I'm just like, fuck it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I had
Yeah.
kids, and at that point, I was just like, everyone come in, like, look at my vagina. I'm pushing out a baby. You know what I mean? And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, you go to the beach, everyone's in skimpy bikinis. Like, honestly, like, I don't really give a fuck. But I mean, I'm not going to broadcast it out there, but I'm not going to be like butthurt if it got out there because people would forget about it in like 5 seconds anyway. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? But
Until you try to
also,
run for president.
and I've always thought I was going to do that, so it would probably get in my way. Kelsey calls me Mrs. President, and I don't remember why, but she does, and that's really funny. But and honestly, like during this time that we were like doing the virtual sex, it's not like you're both just really focused on whatever you're doing to yourself that you're hardly even looking at the screen. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
it's just knowing that it's happening, like you're just not really
Mm-hmm.
like paying attention, and so like it's only weird when you're like first starting it to like figure it out. But I just got to a point where it was like whatever. And
Yeah, it's always like, is this camera angle good? Do you prefer this or do you prefer this?
yeah, and I'm just like, I just got to a point where I'm just like, lay down, open up your legs, and stick the camera at the end. And I'm just like, no, you're not seeing my face, you're not seeing anything else. I'm just like, all you even care about is what's going on down here anyway. So
Yep.
I'm like, that just became like a thing, and it just like didn't matter. And so honestly, like I've never been so like sexually open with anybody. Our relationship is just like it's insane, like the amount of difference that it is and how comfortable we are with things. And that kind of takes me into talking about like fantasies and things, is that a lot of the people that did the survey said that they had these fantasies that they were just too afraid to talk to their partner about.
Mm-hmm. And
And
I have definitely been in that place. So a fantasy for me kind of rolls back to like the masturbation thing, like seeing him do that, like when he pulled out, has like, oh my gosh, it's kind of hot, and it would be kind of hot to like do it together. And it took me a long time to really like process that, and then be able to like verbalize it. I had to be in that headspace to like share it, and it's like I don't know why I have such a hard time with that, because literally like he's seen my butthole, so like what else do I have to hide? Like,
right. And it's
um,
just a risk of feeling uncomfortable, and there's no reason to because they don't
or like
care. They like it.
what will they think about it? And so I'm like, am I weird? Like, is he gonna think I'm weird? Is he not gonna be up for it?
He's
Another
like, she's
weird
talking about my
one.
dick. It's hot. He likes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like I always wanted to give him head more, but like I felt like he always enjoyed like penetrative sex more, and so I just didn't really do it a lot. But like I had a desire to, just because like it would turn me on also. And so I had this sounds so stupid. It's so like normal, I feel like. But I had this like fantasy of like being on my knees in the shower giving him head. And I could never verbalize that. Like I don't like it's so stupid. Like I
And
would
then
give
you
him
get
head
there and
like
you're just
laying
like,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is like nothing. Another one was okay. So this one's a little over the top, and some people may think I'm weird. So it took me a very long time to be able to say it because I didn't know how to like describe it. Because it could be seen as kind of violent. I don't know. So consent to not consent. Do you know what that is?
Almost like role playing him, like I don't want to use the word like rape,
I
but
yes,
being
yeah, I don't.
aggressive.
Yes. So like having his way with me, but in a way like that you like are fully consenting to it. Like you talk about it before it happens. It's not just like he's going to hold you down and do whatever the fuck he wants. Like it's something you have to communicate and you have to be comfortable. And so like in any kind of fantasy, like things can get dangerous. And like
Right.
BDSM was one we saw in the survey, and then threesomes. And I've heard in podcasts that like threesomes, you have to be, or even like thruples, like you have to be so open and honest with your partner or partners.
And how you feel.
So someone doesn't get hurt, whether that's mentally or physically. And so it's such a huge part in a lot of that stuff. So for me, I I liked as we started progressing with things that were a little bit more rough, like, I don't want to say chokes me, but like putting his hand on my neck and applying pressure, like as like we're coming, like so fucking hot. Or like the pull, like hair pulling, like I don't know why I get off by that stuff, but it drives me
And
nuts.
a lot of people do, but it's just not something that they experiment in. So it's like weird. And
Right.
so, like, I think I love talking about all of this stuff because I want the people listening to be like, oh, wow, I've thought that. So it's not weird that I'm thinking that, And then it
Yeah.
is like pretty normal to think stuff like that. But that was recently like a conversation that we had. And I'm just like, in our day-to-day relationship, we're very equal. Like no one is assertive over the other, and we do things like together. And I'm like, when we go in the bedroom, like I like for you to be like assertive and aggressive and just like throw me on the bed or like pull my hair or whatever. And then it's fun to like switch roles and for me to do that to you. And I know that like he likes that. And so I think the more that we have experimented with our like sex life and things, I just recently told him like, it'd be fun to get some of the like BDSM stuff and just like start really small and just like see, what is out there, and that's
Yeah.
just where we're at now. But for the people that have these fantasies that are afraid to talk about them, I mean, like your partner's never gonna know unless you do. And it's not like you have to just go big immediately and be like, like, I don't know, buy a sex swing and like hit me with a whip or something. It doesn't need to be like all
Cut
at
me with
once,
your knife.
Right. I still want to know about the knife. So if you're listening, please tell me. But it's just like start small, with like one little thing and just like move up. And so like my sex life before I met Gary was very vanilla. And I'm like,
Which is
now we,
kind of crazy to me because I just always picture controlling men like to be like not vanilla. I don't know.
maybe it wasn't like super vanilla, but there
Maybe
wasn't
it
like a
was
lot of,
because of the insecurities.
and it could
For
be. I mean, I
that
wasn't really in charge of things, I guess. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there was
like
that,
because
but
he had such bad insecurities. Like maybe that
yeah.
played into him being a bad performer. Maybe.
And I wouldn't even say that it was really just like bad, but I mean, it wasn't often either because, you know, like being in drugs and stuff, like you don't have a sex drive. So honestly, like I have a really hard time even remembering like what our sex life was like because it became so non-existent that like I have no idea. Like I really can't even remember any of that stuff. But I think that like my comfort level is so high now and I feel so much better like about myself that I'm just like willing to try so much stuff and we don't have a problem like just communicating it, you know, and like I don't have any fears of asking him to do something. And so I think for all these people that are afraid to express their fantasies, you know, you don't have to just come out and be like, okay, I want to have a threesome, but, you know, start with something smaller and just build your comfort level. And that's going to get you to be able to talk about your fantasies. I personally, I have zero fantasies of having sex with anybody else but Gary. And I think that I would probably kill someone if they even looked at him the wrong way because I'm just like, I love our sex life. We don't need to add anybody else into it. Like, it is amazing and it's just fine how it is. You know what I mean?
I've heard stories either way that it can be a very interesting experience and fun, but then I've also heard it on the very negative spectrum too, where people say that it has totally ruined their relationships, and it's like, is that a risk? You know, if that's what you're into and you can be open and honest, you know, like we had talked about before, like, is that a risk you're willing to take? And that has to be a part of the conversation.
And it's really just like from an emotional standpoint, you know, and like Gary and I are not into like porn and stuff. Like neither of us like watch it. He's just like, I have a hot girlfriend. Like I don't need to watch that. You know what I mean? And we're both kind of on the understanding of like, why would we need that when we have each other? Like watching that is not going to do the same thing as just like me having sex with you. You know what I mean? And so I think because we're in that mindset, that adding someone else into the mix would just never be a thing. But and I know that you're the same, like you guys are just not into porn and stuff. And so I think it would be interesting to have someone on here that has a different mindset than us that could touch on that. Because I'm just like, when it comes to that kind of stuff, like I have no idea, I have no interest. But if that is something you're into, like you have to, if you're not comfortable enough to talk to your spouse about it, are you even going to be comfortable enough to like do it? You know what I mean?
Right.
And do you want to risk like the emotional part of your relationship? And some people are just open like that, but I don't know. I just like, I couldn't.
I guess I've never thought about a threesome, but I guess when I was drunk one time and Derek brought this up to me, I told him that I thought it would be hot to watch him have sex with somebody else. And I'm like, it makes me really uncomfortable to think about. It makes me really uncomfortable to think about because I am, and this is like just me being honest, like I'm a very jealous person.
Yeah.
Same. Like very. And so like I don't know like where that really comes from. And like I have had such a negative experience with porn that it like repulses me physically. Like I've tried to like see what it's about before multiple times, and it makes me feel physically ill. Like I just think I don't find anything cute about it. And so like when I hear like podcasts, like girls talking about like how they get off to it, I'm like, but how? And I had a good friend, you know, that was really into it, and I had asked her, like, she was a pretty sexual person, and it was something we would talk about. And I'd asked her, I was like, but what do you like watch? Like, what do you get off to? And she was like, girls. And then I was like,
I've heard that a lot, actually. Yeah.
Like women, but it's, so she was explaining it as it's just a lot more gentle. Than like penetrative sex, and
it's almost like a visual of like that
the
is
female
what
pleasing,
you're doing to yourself.
Yeah, and the girl like knows how to please a girl because they have the same parts. And so yeah, for me, it was a really negative experience for me. I'd never really given myself away to a guy being so young that I really like cared about in a way that I would say I really loved. Even like the first person I was with, I thought I loved him, but looking back, I'm like, oh my god, we were children,
Yeah.
and wish him well, whatever. But then it's like you move into a more serious feeling, and like Derek is truly the first person I loved. And when you find that you're giving yourself to a person and they are lying to you about doing things that they say they don't do, it was more of the deceit for me. And then
Like
it
hiding
happened
it.
multiple times. Yes. And so I didn't really understand it. Like, I think I had said, earlier on in the episode that like my first boyfriend did watch porn, and that's how he thought he knew what he was doing. And like, I remember asking him, like, what do you watch? Like, when do you watch it? I was so curious because I didn't know. I was 15. I was never exposed to that stuff. I'd seen it on accident a couple times, and that was because of my dad. But it wasn't ever something that I was seeking out. And so for me, it was more of a curiosity, like, why? Like, what do you do that for? Like, what do you watch? Like, and so I remember him telling me that he watched it and he was 16. Um, and then I never had like a negative view on it. I didn't think negatively of him watching it at that time. And so I don't really know where that came from besides the fact that like maybe I had insecurities that played into a huge part of that, and here I am giving myself to a person in a totally different way. And I just felt like betrayed, one, because he was lying, but betrayed in a way that it was just like I wasn't good enough. And I had felt not good enough for so long that I was like sleeping with people just to sleep with people to be liked. And so it was just like what I was doing wasn't enough. And so that was very frustrating for me. And it has played such a huge impact on our relationship, but it has also helped us grow a lot. And it has helped him grow a lot as far as like, being more honest with himself and making, the choices that he wants to in life. And I'm not saying porn is a negative thing for everyone, because for a long time I was like, porn's gross, like people shouldn't do that, whatever. To each their own. Sexuality, period, to each their own. Sex work, whatever. And some people, that's their livelihood. And it's hard to think that it's all consensual sometimes because there is so much that happens in that industry. Um, is very negative and has negative impact on people's lives. And so to me, I view it in a very negative light. To somebody else, it might actually help their relationship and their sex. It might actually help them figure things out together. I know of people who watch it together, or the girl introduced it into the relationship rather than the guy. Um, for me personally, and even it's just not, it's not necessary for us. And like Derek and I both prefer to have sex with each other more than we do to masturbate. Like when he travels, sometimes he's like, I would rather just wait 3 days and come home and have like animal sex with you than like masturbate and then not even like really feel the desire.
Before we were like reconnected after me leaving to go back to Indiana for 2 months, like when it got to be like a week or something, we were just like, okay, like we're just not going to do anything. That way it's like better when we're together. But honestly, like since I've lived here, like I don't ever masturbate because our sex life is so healthy. And like, he works a night schedule now. So he'll work for 2 days, he'll be off 2 days, he'll work 3 days, be off 2 days, and it's just like back and forth. And
Mm-hmm.
I would rather just wait for him to be home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like with the porn thing, I never really had an issue with it before. I think it would bug me when the relationship was suffering. So when I was married, I would find it on his phone, but we weren't really having sex. Um, or my sex drive wasn't high, but then he would lie to me about it. So it just made me
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable that he had to look at that. And then, like, with my kid's dad, it was like he had no sex drive because of being back on drugs and things, but it was just constant porn, like all the time. That was all that was on his phone. And I'm just like, why? Like, why would you rather do that, but you want nothing to do with me? And then accuse me of cheating all the time, but like, you don't want to be with me. And so for me, it was just like, if porn is taking my place, like, I don't like it, like,
Mm-hmm.
why do you prefer that? And so then it just got to the point where, like, Gary's not into it, which is great, and I love that. But our relationship is so good that, like, I think I would just be devastated if at some point in time, like, he would rather watch that. And I mean,
Yeah.
even with like masturbation and stuff, I'm just like, there's not really a need for you to do it like by yourself without me knowing about it. You know what I mean? Because, like,
Yeah, it's like, why hide it? Like, if
right,
you're gonna do it, at least like tell me. And I feel like it's kind of exciting, like, to know that they're like doing it, like,
like maybe I'm
where
at
I
work or
would be
something.
upset. Like, I would be upset if like I didn't know.
Yeah, which,
I
we
don't
don't have that
know.
problem. We don't have that problem, but it's just like, I don't know, if like we're together so often that it's like, why do you need to, though? You know what I mean? Like, where am
Mm-hmm.
I when this is happening? Like, that would be a
Right.
big thing for me. But I mean, luckily we don't have that issue, but it's just like something that is always like in my brain. I'm always like worried about
Oh,
it.
did he
Like,
masturbate?
yeah, like, I don't know, and it's stupid. He's just like, babe, like, I'm not. And I'm just like, I don't know, like, because my ex would always just do that and just like lock
Yeah.
himself in the bathroom. Maybe he's doing drugs, maybe he's just like jerking off. I don't know. But I'm like, it's caused me to have such PTSD and anxiety if Gary goes in the bathroom and locks the door. And I'm just like, sure, maybe you just want to take a shit and shut the door and lock it so the kids don't come in. And he's just like, babe, like, nothing's going on. You know what I mean? But
I
I'm
get really
sorry.
bad anxiety just about like silly things like that too, and it's as simple as things of just as simple as him just being on his phone sometimes, and I have to verbalize those triggers and kind of work through those, and um, it's a different type. I mean, you definitely have PTSD and what I've been through, and it constantly comes up in my brain, and my brain is constantly trying to process, and it always thinks the worst things possible.
Yeah.
But it's a form of PTSD, and it's called betrayal trauma. And it's just the things that take you back, or the triggers that take you back to feeling how you felt in the moment of basically finding out the truth. And
Hmm.
it literally takes you back to that gut wrenching feeling of just sickness almost. It doesn't happen all the time, but I have a lot of dreams that like bring me back to that. But it
Yeah.
wasn't like I had one discovery, I had multiple discoveries. And finally, the last straw, I was like, I can't. I remember like telling him, like, I cannot be in this position again, like, of being actually lied to. Like, I found out before we were married and then after we were married, and I was like, and you literally married me and said our vows and like knew that you were like lying to my face. And so that was really, really difficult for me. And so there are just things that trigger me, and it sucks. But yeah, so as far as that kind of like rolls into, I guess, the whole reason of the podcast, and like insecurities, and porn can create a lot of insecurities, but just insecurities about how we feel about ourselves, and how you kind of fall into that comparison trap. Okay, well, they're watching bigger women than what I am, or they're watching women of darker skin color, or they're watching women somebody the total opposite of what I am.
Like, why did you choose
um
that one? Is there a reason that you chose
yeah,
that? Like, do you prefer this? Am I not like what you prefer?
correct. And so when I saw some of that, it really damaged me. And then I found it after, first I found it before when we first started dating. And then kind of getting to know who he was, and it really kind of freaked me out. And then after that, after we had our son, and then when we were planning our daughter and we were married. And so it was a few times that I'd run into these things, and it was just a very sad experience. But, you know, I just had a baby and I was like, I don't look like these women. I have stretch marks. I am a size 12 to 14 right now, the biggest I've ever been. I am swollen. I have postpartum depression. I have no sex drive. You know, I cry all the time. I'm fucking exhausted. And so it's just like, and this is what I find. You know, it made me feel so worthless. And so, you know, working through your insecurities has such a huge play into your performance in the bedroom, or even, you know, intimacy in general, and how you react with your partner. And so, you know, I guess the main question when we were asked, like, how do you keep it spicy when you feel insecure about certain parts of your body? Well, you have to first do things that make you feel good about yourself, because, you know, and that all goes back to how we said, like, you can't be good for anybody else unless you're good for yourself. You can't be good for your partner unless you know, figure your own shit out. And you might not be 100% confident. I sure as fucking, like, I am not 100% confident, and I know that. And but I also feel very comfortable with my partner. And so that, and communication, you know, is key. But I do things, I don't do it all the time, but I do things to make myself feel better, but also that I know that he enjoys. Like, even just putting my hair up, like, sometimes just like, he's like, oh, you never wear your hair up, you know, like, that's exciting. Or, you know, I know he likes red underwear. Of all the underwear I have, he likes red. So I always, when I buy new underwear, I always try to throw a red pair in there. I hate the color red. I hate color, period. I usually just go for the gray, black, brown. So I just hate color. And so I go for very muted things. And so I always try to wear like a pair of red panties. And then he knows, like, okay, like, she wants to have sex with me. And so I'll wear the ones that I feel good in. Lingerie, same thing. I will not go and wear any kind of lingerie. Like, I have to feel decent in it. Like, if my boobs look saggy in it, or it's not supporting me in the way that I like, or it's not covering certain pieces that I'd like to be covered, or, you know, if I don't feel good in it, I'm not going to wear it. And, you know, I've always been a girly girl, so I like doing my makeup. So I like to have my makeup done, like, you know, if it's not just like a before bedtime type of sex, if it's more of a lead up. So yeah, just like feeling more secure and confident will only open those doors and make it easier to take those next steps in the bedroom. So the better you feel about yourself will only translate to them. And so with, you know, the men that took the survey showing that they literally had no insecurities about their women, or like things that they point out, that literally not one saying, oh, she has stretch marks, or I think her titties are saggy, or like her pussy isn't tight, like whatever, like not a single one of those things. The only thing is, I have more sex drive than her, which woo fucking who, like, that's not a big surprise. Like, men typically have a bigger sex drive. It's, you know, how their bodies and their brains work compared to females. And so
they're worried about their size. I'm like, so you're over here worrying about your stretch marks, and they're just like, is my dick big enough for her? But listen, like, if you take your clothes off, he's just like, there's boobs, there's an ass, like, it's all good. You know what I mean? Like, they don't give a fuck.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, for this whole thing is like, how do you spice it up? Like, I'm going to do it with the lights on. Like, I think a good step for this person would be to, you know, send like little texts throughout the day, just like, kind of like get him thinking about it. And then like when he comes home, like, do your hair and your makeup, and like go look in the mirror and just feel like the hottest bitch ever. You know what I mean? And like, your whole mindset is just gonna like change completely. And I know that, like, for like a normal, like, just daily, like, hooking up or whatever, It's just, like bedtime, lights are already off, whatever, that just happens. But on the days where, I try to like plan it out to be this big thing, like I'll go put on lingerie. Like I had bought this like lacy, I don't want to call it a cardigan because it's like short sleeves, but it's like flowy and it has some buttons. It's pink and floral and it's cute and it's kind of like see through. It's to wear like over a dress. I don't have anything that matches it, so I'll wear it naked. And he just loves that, So I'm just like, I put the kids to bed. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I go put that on, and he's just like, wow, you look so good, And
it's like the little surprises that they don't expect.
Right. And the other day I put on, I had just bought these like thigh high, like heeled black boots for this photo shoot that I did. And so I put on like black on lingerie, I put on fishnets, I put on the boots, and he ripped the fishnets off. And he was just like, we have to buy more of these because I love them. And I took a picture of them and I was like, if your man doesn't do this, like, but it's just stuff like that, and I know I have like a mom pouch. Like I've had 2 kids. Like I've never really been super secure in my body, but I had to get to a place where I'm just like, I am comfortable with how I am. And if I don't like something, then, I'm going to change it. And it's just like, even if I don't feel 1,000,000%, like he makes me feel so good that like in that moment I'm just like, I'm literally like the hottest bitch on the planet. Like nobody's hotter than me, like, you know what I mean? And so it's just like, if you what I've learned about like leaving the lights on and stuff is like, if you can do all these little extra things to like please him so that you feel really hot and wear things that make you feel really good, like you're not even going to be concerned about the lights being on. You know what I mean?
And to be honest, I don't love lights on anyways. I like dim light. So like start with a night light. Like it just sets the mood a little differently.
We have or like wick candles.
Okay. Oh.
And I love having them. We both have them on our nightstands.
Ooh, that sounds fun. I might have to try that.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever really used candles. We did in the bathroom when we did it on the counter one time, but
candles have become like a huge part of it. And so like sometimes, I don't know, the other night I was in the bathroom and I walked out and he lit the candles and I'm just like, okay, like I know what this means. But like we keep a lighter on the nightstand and I bought the candles specifically for the nightstand. So like they're always there, like it's easy to access. And then actually one other thing that has like really helped on the days that, we're just trying to like do it up is I went to Goodwill and I found this. It's literally a sex board game. And there are like 3 different tiers, like, like the less crazy stuff. And then they just get more intense the more that you like play it or whatever. And it's a long game, but sometimes it just tells you like what to do. Some of them are tasks for later. And finding something like that is just fun, It's like, oh, you landed here, you have to take something off. So like we'll light candles, we'll drink wine, and find little snacks because sometimes you have to eat food off of each other. There's just like different kinds of things. So I think you want to spice it up. It's something as simple as that. And I bought it for $3. Like you can find something anywhere. And it's just, if anyone is like interested in the sex toys and stuff, I'm going to put some links for places for you to like purchase, but I'll find a list of some different like games and ideas and stuff and like link that below. But it's just the littlest things like that, I think, that can really make the difference.
Yep. And so I guess that kind of is our wrap up is ways to spice things up and what to try or work on. So one would, definitely be your confidence and work on yourself first. Do things that make you feel good. And then starting small, like don't think that you have to go out and buy a butt plug or go and choke your partner. Like it doesn't have to be that dramatic jump. Like I've been with my partner for almost 13 years and it like literally we are just reaching that point of new like things that are a little bit more taboo. Or, a little bit more porn starry. I don't know. Like like we've taken it just a little bit to the next level in this past year. And so if that tells you anything, it takes fucking time. So if you're afraid to send a photo, like start in your underwear or start with just like some underboob or,
I would
just
like
showing more
cover, you know?
cleavage. Yeah, or
Yeah.
covering yourself. Like you don't have to be nude, but do something out of your comfort zone that you think you would enjoy. And it's just small steps. And then that will lead you into more directions to get you to where you want to be later.
And your
So,
partner's going to
and
verbalize like their feelings about it too, like, wow, I really like that. And when they say they like something, you just get this initiative to like do more. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's just natural that you're going to do that. And if you can just like take your partner out of it for 1 second and just spend a day like doing what makes you feel good and look at the way they react.
yeah. And communication is key. That'll get you to basically everywhere you want to be, intimately, sexually, wherever. If you literally can't have the conversation, like if you can't talk to someone, how do you have sex with them? I guess I just don't understand
There are
that.
deeper
I
issues
know
there.
I know there are uncomfortable conversations. I still have them with my husband all the time. There's always things that are going to make you uncomfortable. But if you can't talk about the small things, then, what are you doing?
And I think also make sure that you keep an open mind, because if you're going to open that can of worms to talk about different sexual things, like your partner's going to want to have an input as well. And so you need to be open to the things that they're talking about and just figuring out like what is a comfortable first step for like both of you.
Yeah, because you might have fantasies that they're not fully open to, and they might as well. And they might make you think, okay, well, now that they've verbalized this, is this all they want? And that's not the case. They just now felt comfortable to share it. And whether that's a safe space, between you guys in your relationship, that's for you guys to decide. But yeah, I think people should have more sex at least every couple days. I think people should masturbate, especially when their partner is away and they verbalize it with their partner. It makes it more exciting. I think people should, really try out toys, and it could be something super simple as a cock ring. Things that you can buy at the grocery store, like just
Walmart has a whole thing
yeah,
now.
it could be oral, like flavored lube, like just take small steps, and definitely try different things to build up the mood throughout the day. So.
And I mean, and if you haven't like tried anything yet, I think like a good like starting step without having to purchase anything would just be like figuring out like oral sex.
Mm-hmm.
That's I mean, and
Yeah.
it's not for everyone. I really enjoy doing it. It's a very, very cement concrete thing of our sex life. So it's like a daily thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's just like that works for us. It's not for everyone, but to start something new, like I feel like that's like a really good stepping stone. But I think before you have the conversations with your partner about things that are interesting to you, or maybe about like insecurities that you have, just make sure that you both are open-minded and like explaining that to them, like if this is funny to you or whatever, like just please like be cautious, because it's been really hard for me to talk to you about it. And I mean, even if it's like a fantasy, or just like, these are the things I feel bad about myself about, because sometimes just telling your partner what you're insecure about, like they can make you feel better.
Yeah.
So
Hey, my computer might die.
yeah, that's good. You know what, I think that pretty much is like
Yeah. I think we hit all the topics, not in the exact order, but we hit everything. So
yeah. It never goes like that anyway. It's always better to just have casual conversation,
yeah.
But
Yep. All
all right.
right.
Well,
We did it.
thank you for coming on my show.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.